Welcome back to American Government and Politics. This is Professor Jonathan Day, and in this lecture we're going to be looking briefly at civil liberties. So what are civil liberties? Civil liberties refer to the fundamental rights and freedoms that individuals possess, and these in the United States are spelled out with regards to the Bill of Rights particularly, but other constitutional provisions. They're designed to protect the individuals from government actions that may interfere with their personal freedoms, and they are limitations on government power, right? And so the way you should see civil liberties is they are the people saying government cannot overstep these particular rights that we have as people. Civil rights, on the other hand, as we'll see in that lecture, is the government making sure that, or the people making sure that the government does not discriminate between the people and give preferential treatment to one group over another group. Okay, so where civil liberties prevents a vertical oppression of power by the government, the civil rights prevents a horizontal pressure of power where they give more preferences to one group or they discriminate against another group. So that is what civil liberties are, and we're going to document some of these civil liberties briefly in this lecture. So the First Amendment states that Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And so in the Bill of Rights, and this is one of the amendments to the Bill of Rights, remember there are 10 amendments, and the first 9 amendments really deal with the civil liberties of the people. In this First Amendment, you'll actually see that there are five rights. There's the freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, right to peaceably assemble, and the right to petition the government for redress of grievances. And so notice here that each one of these are protected where the government cannot oppress the people. They can't stop you from exercising your religion or exercising your speech, right? And they have to allow for a free press and so forth, okay? But there are restrictions on free speech, right? So we don't view free speech as an absolute right. We view that there are some limitations to this. And some of these, for example, are the incitement to violence. So you're allowed to speak freely, except when you're trying to provoke people to commit immediate harm or illegal activities. You're not allowed to defame other people. So this includes both slander, which is basically destroying someone's reputation with something that's untrue, or libel, which is the written form of that. You're not allowed to defame other people. So the government has the power to have laws against defamation. Obscenity can be regulated by the government. So, for example, if it's sexually explicit or it is vulgar, the government has the ability to regulate obscene things. Fighting words, their government is allowed to prevent people from fighting, from using words that would incite others to fight. Commercial speech can be regulated if it is false advertising or related to illegal activities. And finally, the national security and government interest. So speech that poses a clear and present danger to national security can also be restricted. Other civil liberties that we have include the Second Amendment, which was interpreted by D.C. versus Heller, that Supreme Court case that means that individuals have the right to bear arms, although restrictions can be applied in the area of guns. The people retain the right to bear arms. The Third Amendment has the right to protect people against the government forcing soldiers into private homes during peacetime without the owner's consent. The Fourth Amendment has several rights that you should know about: protection against unreasonable searches and seizures, requirement of probable cause for search warrants. The Fifth Amendment outlines the right to due process, protection against double jeopardy. This means that you can't be tried for the same crime twice by the same level of courts. The exception of this is that you could get a civil penalty, a civil trial, and a criminal trial for the same crime, such as O.J. Simpson did when he had the state trial for murder, but he also had a civil trial against him for murder, for wrongful death. for the same crime. Protection against self-incrimination. This is when people say, I plead the fifth. They're allowed to remain silent, and they do not have to answer any questions. There's a protection against the taking of private property without just compensation. So the government is allowed to take your property if it's for public use, and they give you a just compensation, the money for the property. In the Sixth Amendment, you have a right to a speedy and public trial. But a speedy and public trial actually is defined as somewhere between like 6 and 12 months after the arrest. This allows, for example, the prosecution, the defense to build up their case before they go to trial. But the government cannot delay past that. You have a right to an impartial jury, right to be informed of the charges, right to confront witnesses, a right to compel witnesses to testify, so you can subpoena witnesses in your trial, and you have the right to legal representation. In the Seventh Amendment, you have a right to a jury trial in civil cases involving disputes exceeding $20. So it guarantees your right to a jury trial. In the Eighth Amendment, you have the protection against excessive bail, the protection against excessive fines, protection against cruel and unusual punishment. And then finally, in the Ninth Amendment, you have the enumeration of rights in the Constitution does not deny or disparage other rights retained by the people. What this means is that if the founders weren't able to fully articulate what your rights are, but you do have them, those should be as protected as well. And what's interesting about this, though, that you should know about civil liberties, and this is something that you'll find when you take a class on civil liberties, if you take a class on civil liberties, is that for each one of these, there's court cases that interpret what these rights mean, but you'll also find that there are limitations to these rights as well. So depending on the context and the circumstances, these rights have certain guidelines or limitations for how they can operate. So that is the brief view of civil liberties. The next lecture will be on civil rights.